All right. Hey, everybody. This is Rob of Archangel Inc. And with me tonight, once again,
Jordan
is
of Archangel Inc.
cool. Jordan, thanks for joining me again. This
Yeah.
is Archangel Inc. number 4, live number 4. And so tonight, I want to talk about pre-orders. This is a question that came up recently. One of our clients asked about whether it was worth it. And so we've talked about it a little bit before. I'm not sure on video, but certainly with clients. But I wanted to jump in and we learned some new and interesting things. So Jordan, I will open the floor to you and feel free to start and share some thoughts on whatever you want to start off with.
I will start off by saying whether or not you do a pre-order, it's not the end all be all of your book marketing and launch campaign. It's something to consider, and we're going to jump into that a little bit more. If you had already launched your book and it's already out there and you're, oh, I didn't do the pre-order. I should have done that. It's no big deal. It's okay. All is not lost because you did not do a pre-order. But that all being said, we are starting to lean more toward the pre-orders, and we have several reasons for that. And I don't know if you want to just jump right into the reasons.
Yeah.
Rob,
so let me give a little context for it. The position that we had for a while was that pre-orders can kind of dilute the momentum and the sort of forward velocity when you're setting up your book. So one of the ideas that is helpful for Amazon, the Amazon algorithm, is okay. You want to drive a lot of traffic over to a book, and then a lot of that traffic you want to convert. So the more that you can kind of concentrate that, if you imagine that it's a sort of limited capacity in total, that you don't have an infinite number of people that you can drive over, then to the extent that you can gather those limited people over and make them kind of all purchase in that same window, ideally within that first day or so, then it can help to increase your Amazon ranking and then also to have you be perceived more favorably by Amazon. Amazon sees that there's a lot of eyeballs going over there and they're converting really well. So it helps bring over more eyeballs there. The concern with the pre-order was that you wouldn't be able to, you'd have, kind of a sale here and here and here and here in the, days and weeks leading up to it. And on the day of the launch, those people would all receive the book, but they wouldn't all necessarily count at that time toward the Amazon ranking and toward that, velocity of the initial launch. So is that still the case, or, what's going on now to your understanding, Jordan?
So my thought process with it and what we've been starting to share with more people is all of what you just said there is true. If you were to say, if you were to put your book on pre-order for, 90 days from now, if I put it up for whatever 90 days is from now, January 10th or whatever, if I put it up for January 10th and then I got it up, maybe I had a few reviews and I was like, okay, I'm going to send all my traffic there. I'm going to send everyone from my list. I'm going to do some promotions. I'm going to do some Facebook ads. I'm going to do all that stuff and send them there, let's say tomorrow. And then because then you'd have one potentially big day of sales, and then maybe you'd kind of track off from there. And that's not necessarily good. Okay. So as far, and I think that's where we've been thinking, like, we don't want to recommend people do that, because there's a part of you that, you get your book up on Amazon, even if it's for a pre-order, you want to start sending people there. And it definitely makes sense to start thinking that, but that's not necessarily what we recommend. So as far as pre-orders go, I think it's best to think of it as, during the pre-order, you're not sending your biggest traffic to the page. You can. It's not the end of the world if you do, but you want to save something for that launch day. But there's so much that can be, and there's so much that can be gained from doing an Amazon pre-order. In that, and I'll just share a couple that I've really enjoyed, and I think is a really good reason to do it. You get your stuff up there. I think we even mentioned this maybe last week or the week before, when we just started talking about this a little bit. But you get it up there. You get to figure out all your details for your book's page. You get to add all your editorials. You get to basically build a page without having to do this soft launch, hard launch kind of thing, which a lot of people have done before, and we've recommended that. As far as utilizing you get about 30 days within Amazon to make a splash. So you kind of had to do that kind of strategy, the soft launch and hard launch strategy, in order to, maximize that, which means you had to publish your book, get people to review it, and then maybe a week later, go ahead and launch the thing. And that can be hard to do in that very brief, amount of time. You have a week, you got to follow up with people. You got to get them to, leave the book a review, and then you got to plan all your other stuff as well. Right. The pre-order kind of makes that process a little easier. You can still save your heavy hitters and your traffic for your actual launch day, but having that book up there, just gives you that peace of mind that it's up there and ready and looks good.
Right. So in other words, it helps you sort of capitalize on that initial reach out period. You could say, hey, listen, it's already live. I'd love for you to do this. It doesn't have to be, today or tomorrow, but it can be, in the next month, or, something like that. Meanwhile, it's sort of building and accumulating that body of reviews to help with that social proof when you do that big push. Is that the idea?
Yes. And I will share the tricky part of that. So technically, if you have a book up there and it's a Kindle pre-order, people cannot leave a review for that book until it launches.
Okay.
But cool. The trick is, if you put your paperback up, you can put your paperback up whenever.
Okay.
You could put it, say you set your Kindle pre-order for 90 days, you got it up there, you have the page ready to go. You could, conceivably you could upload your paperback maybe at the 30-day mark. And then at that point you can say, hey, people, can you start going on and leaving all the people you sent your book to for advanced review copies, they can then go on and leave that review and get that up there. Right. And I'm guessing you could probably conceivably skip the paperback and do audiobook instead.
Okay.
And leave a review for the audiobook. But I know some reviews on Audible sometimes are technically different than reviews. I know Audible will pull Amazon reviews if they don't already have their own.
Yep.
Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they'll try and populate it, because what I've noticed over the last bunch of years is that Audible reviews are just a lot harder to come by. It's easier to get people to write reviews for whatever reason on Kindle and on print editions. And so, a lot of books that would have a fair number of reviews on the digital or print edition would have one or none on the Audible edition, the audio edition. And so Audible just started to kind of populate the Kindle or the Amazon review section on theirs. Now there's also a section where you can leave Audible specific reviews, and you can rate it across 5 different metrics, from performance of the narrator, story, listenability or something like that, and then you can leave a review specifically for Audible, and that's really cool. But in the absence of that, or in as an adjunct to that, there's also the Amazon regular reviews. So that's I think that's what's going on there.
Yep. Yeah. And pre-orders aren't perfect. When you're thinking of, and I'll share first of all, my favorite reason, before we get into the maybe downsides, my favorite reason for doing a pre-order is so that you can start experimenting with Amazon ads.
Okay.
And what that allows you to do is you can start seeing the conversion rates of your page. You can start to see, okay, I sent 200 clicks to my books page, I didn't get a sale. Or, you sent 100 people to your books page and you got 10 to 15 sales. Like that's pretty good. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything's good to go. Like my sales copy is converting. This is a book people want to buy. I have everything up there and it's looking good, and that gives you confidence moving forward. You already have that piece of information. You can start to maybe put a little bit more into Facebook ads, or if you want to put a little bit more into the Amazon ads during your launch, or put even more effort with getting traffic from whatever outside source.
Right.
You're going to utilize. You have that time within the pre-order, and then having all that stuff up there, you have the time to analyze it and change things as needed before launch, so you're not scrambling during that 30-day, period of time to get everything right.
Right. So let's talk about that 30-day period. Why is that important? You mentioned it earlier. For folks who are unfamiliar, what's the meaning of that or significance of that?
Yeah. So when you first launch a book on Amazon, it has gotten increasingly harder to get this when you want to get it as a bestseller. And then beyond that, you want to get it on Amazon's new release radar. And that takes reviews, it takes sales, it takes into conversions. I mean, it takes into whatever Amazon wants to consider that day.
Right.
But to maximize that window, it's based on your first 30 days from launch. And this still, we don't have this cold hard fact. This is just a theory. A lot of people are operating under this theory.
Right.
And, we believe it. We operate under it. We don't know for sure that it's true. Even if it is true today, it may not be true tomorrow. That's kind of one thing that's,
right.
That's very true about Amazon.
Right. So one thing we do know, I think, and you can confirm or deny this, is there is a hot new release sort of designation, and that is that 30 days, right? So being able to, at the very least, show up there in addition, hopefully, to your general category seems to be advantageous. Amazon, they're a retailer, their interest is in moving product, and so if there's continual refreshing of the products that they offer, it's in their interest to get people sort of interested in that. And so okay, so that's cool. That's all.
And that, just so we can clarify that too, that's 30 days from the book's actual launch. Okay. So that's yet another benefit to doing a pre-order, is that you have more time to potentially be in that new release radar. Your book counts as a new release if it's in the pre-order.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you can extend out the pre-order. So this is let's talk about the duration of it. It used to be I think 90 days. Is that right? For the pre-order, you can do it a maximum of 90 days out. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. How long is the Amazon pre-order window currently?
You can now add a book pre-order for up to a year.
Okay, so I want to launch
recently, as far as I know, changed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's really. What would be the advantage? I mean, at least theoretically, what's the advantage of having something that far out? Like you just know that you're going to have it complete, but you maybe are still even in the writing or drafting stages. And why would somebody consider doing it as far as a year out?
I think, just conceivably, as I don't know if I would do it personally myself. I think that's a long time to be working towards something. I'm fine with a 90-day period. I don't have any if you don't have any immediate need to get a book out there, I think you could do that. If you know, maybe your next 2 or 3 books, and you're like, hey, I want to get this information up and ready to go. Right. When you upload your pre-order to Amazon, you actually, and they changed this too within the last couple months, you don't actually have to put up a file anymore. Okay. You can check a box and say, I will upload my file within 10, 15 days. I don't know what that exactly is. You just have to upload it before the book, like at least a week before the book goes live. Okay.
At the risk of being censured by Amazon if you fail to do that, right? So there's a penalty if you're like, yep, I'm gonna make it available, and then you don't. So then Amazon, suspends your account potentially, or what happens there as far as you know?
I believe they're pretty serious about this from what I've seen. I think it's a suspension of being able to do any pre-orders for your entire account for up to a year. Or at least that used to be what that was. Okay. But I mean, as we've mentioned before, and we always talk about, you want to do the best you can not to be on Amazon's bad side in any way. Right. So make sure, if you're gonna, and they take their pre-orders seriously, because they're all about the customer, and they've always been that way. They're about the customer experience. If someone orders your book and then they either don't get it when they originally were promised to get it, or they get a file that's just the book is not ready. Maybe it's just an unformatted Word document. Like that's not
halfway complete or something.
Yeah, that's not good.
Right. And so it's disadvantageous for your relationship with Amazon, and then potentially for your relationship with your clients, right? Your readers, your customers, the people who are actually going out and purchasing that book. So as I'm thinking about it, one of the advantages potentially I can see, if you do have a good platform, if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have something, big social media presence, big blog, it allows you to continually send traffic over that way. Like, hey, listen, my new book is due out, fall of 2020. Check it out. It's going to be entitled such and such. Here's my Amazon page, pre-order today, and then I guess you could probably even do little promos. Hey, send me a screenshot of your pre-order, and you'll be put on my special list for such and such, thing. So it could be part of that more comprehensive, strategy that we talk about and recommend to kind of drum up interest for an upcoming launch.
Yeah, I could see a lot of potential out of that. I can see a lot of challenges too. You'd have to know what your title was going to be, and you'd have to have a book cover. Yeah. Okay. And I think for me, like looking ahead a year, I have some book ideas, but I don't know if I could be confident of a book title having not finished the book. So conceivably, you could put a title and a book cover for a book that isn't even in its first draft form or has no words in it. Right. It could be an interesting challenge to do that, but then you are locking yourself into, that's my title, that's my book cover.
Are those not changeable? Like, in other words, if you put it up, let's say you have book launch Gladiator #2, launching a book in 2020 and beyond or something, and you have a cover and a title, and you end up at some point you're like, actually no, I want to change it. It's not book launch Gladiator anymore. It's going to be book launch Spartan, and there's a different cover that you want to use. Is that adjustable, or is that not permitted?
That's definitely an interesting question, because I know you can change. I think you can change an update title within Kindle books. I know you can't for print books,
right?
And I know you could theoretically upload a new cover. My only question with that would be pre-order wise.
Yeah.
Would that be something, by the time, if they pre-ordered your original book with original title, all of a sudden they get it, whenever they're going to get it, and I don't know what this is. Like, I didn't pre-order this. I think there could potentially be issues, and those issues would probably be few and far between. But would Amazon have an issue with you doing that for a pre-order? I don't know. Right. It's a good question.
Yeah. I wonder if depending on how much latitude they give you, potentially you could even use it to kind of split test your covers, right? I mean, you could send Amazon ad traffic your way. You could try a cover, and see the one cover now, another cover, in a week from now, continue to send traffic that way, see what the conversion rate is like, and then select it. I mean, there are other ways to do it too. I mean, that maybe wouldn't involve Amazon. You can do the Facebook, ad split testing, right? Yeah. You can have, hey, check out this book, and then cover 1 and cover 2 and cover 3 or whatever. But yeah, okay. So that's interesting. So this has changed recently when we talked about it. We in the last week or so. Yep. That was kind of a big change. So folks out there who are interested in pre-orders, there's now another whole series of questions and things that you can consider. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so let's see. You mentioned earlier, one of the nice advantages is being able to do those ads. Let's talk about the downsides of pre-orders. Why would I not want to set up a pre-order? What are the complications and things that I should keep in mind if I'm an author and I'm thinking about doing it?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is what we mentioned before. If you set up a pre-order, you need to have the book done by that date. So you really want to have the book done and ready to go. You don't want to be in this back and forth with it, not being edited. You don't want to run that anywhere near. We always say launch the book 30 days after you have final files. So you're working on the marketing, your content is set, ready to go. So I think that's definitely something to consider. As far as downsides, we used to think it would limit your, launch day, and all you could do around that. But if you plan it strategically and you really only utilize the pre-order time for Amazon ads, or if you want to test other ads, you could potentially do that as well. I wouldn't spend too much on it before the actual launch, because you still want to maximize your launch time frame as much as you can. You want to do promos, whatever other marketing stuff you have planned. You want to do it for launch time, and not necessarily just during pre-orders.
Yep. Okay. So with let's see, with pre-orders, you definitely want to make sure that you have it up there. Launch your momentum. So I guess in general, one of the things that I sense with Amazon, and I think this is a good thing overall, is that they are trying to orient people and products toward things that have evergreen value, toward things that are not kind of flash in the pan. We chatted with a client recently, and talked about the idea of the Kindle Gold Rush, and that's not really there anymore. It used to be the case that you could just send a bunch of traffic over, and that you could just have a book available to download immediately, and people would buy it because it was so novel and kind of cool.
Yeah.
But even so, but even after that, it was like, okay, if you just got a bunch of downloads, if you had an active list or some momentum behind you, you can get 20, 50, 100, couple hundred downloads in a day. And then Amazon's like, hey, you're golden. And then kind of just keep pushing you in front of new people for a long time. It seems like more and more people have caught on to that fact. And so it's not that simple anymore. And so that there is a movement toward sort of perpetual sales. So, I mean, another thing, like when it comes to reviews, if you had a bunch of reviews right around launch time, and then your book has been out now for 2 years and you've had one review in the last 2 years, that's not seen as favorably. as a book that maybe, got 10 reviews at launch, but now you're up to 40 reviews and there's been a consistent, review every week or so after that, because it shows that it has relevance. There's the ongoing meaningfulness of that title. And so Amazon's like, okay, that's cool. People are still buying it. People are still talking about it. Yeah. We're going to continue to recommend it to others because it's a demonstrated performer.
Yeah, the more you can build this, and we talked about platform, a lot, but the more you can build a solid platform for yourself as an author on Amazon, the better you're going to do, in the long run. It's really, I used to focus too much when I was an author early on, too much on those big days. And getting as much sales, like, oh, cool. I got 50 sales. Oh, the next day, sweet. I got 100.
Yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't mean as much as it used to. Really, I like what you're saying there, because that's so important. It's so important to be thinking about more of the long term, making a good quality product.
Right.
Because there's so much you can do beyond that as well. And Rob, before I forget, the third thing I was going to mention with the pre-orders, and this is an interesting thing. I'm not sure I have any data to prove this. Is just kind of a thought process in my mind. I think, why would someone pre-order my book? I try to put myself in the place of the customer. I know a lot of people do pre-orders. Me personally, I have a hard time even pre-ordering a book from some of my favorite authors, because for me as a millennial, and I think a lot of millennials too, we want it now, or I'm going to wait and I'll get, maybe I won't want it in 60 days. I don't know. Right. I don't know what I'm going to want in 60 days. So I think it's an interesting, we talk about conversion rates and stuff. You think about, okay, even if my book is on sale during this pre-order time, did someone potentially not buy it because of the price, or did they not buy it because they saw that it's going to be released in 60 days? Right. So as far as downsides for a pre-order, that's why, I wouldn't recommend pushing too much traffic that way within, especially 90 or 60 days before. Cause I think there's that mindset there of why would I do that? And that, there are people that are pre-ordering books. I had several pre-orders in my book when I did it, and other authors have had success with it too. Like, people do that, but I think it's just, thinking about, as far as conversion rates go, it's hard to analyze that, because that's just something extra to think about.
Right. So it may be that it is targeting a different part of your audience, right? I mean, people who, right. So in other words, there's some people who are like, I'm so dang busy. Like, let me just buy this now. I went to this page and I'm going to forget about it, but it's going to auto download onto my Kindle, in 30 days or 60 days or whenever it launches. And other people may be like you. They're like, well, if I'm interested enough to buy it, like, I want to look through it. I want to know what the heck is going on, and I want to start browsing it now. And so, if it's not available now, then, out of sight, out of mind. And, I'll make my way back at some point. And maybe when it's live, I'll go ahead and buy it. So yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, though. It's hard to parse out, what the reason is for the sale or non-sale. But, I think in general, that is a problem or challenge with Amazon. They're so opaque about who's actually buying. And, they handle all of the technical side. They handle all of the tax, tax side. They handle all the distribution, all of that stuff. But we as content creators, we don't know who's actually buying it. We can't go and say, hey, Jane Smith, thanks so much for purchasing my book. Love for you to visit my website and get on my email list or do those other things. We can do that in the book, but there's no way to contact them directly. And, so that's one of the challenges compared to potentially other ways of making your book available, like through direct sales or something.
Yeah. And again, that's just another reason I like Amazon ads so much, is that, you have no window into Amazon's system, like you were just saying, at all. But you have a slight peek with Amazon ads. You can see your clicks, you can see how you're doing, how you're converting. And that's where, if you look at that and analyze and utilize that data, then you can start to send other traffic that maybe you can't track as easily.
Right. Yeah. It just gives you that additional data point that can be really helpful. So, okay, cool. So let's wrap up and summarize here. Pre-orders are not, first thing, not make or break. Whether you do one or not is not going to be the determinant to whether your book succeeds on the metrics of your choice. It is now available for up to a year in advance, and you can set up a book. The pros, potentially you can start accessing the Amazon ads, kind of optimizing your sales page and making sure that when you're sending people over, you're finding the right people and saying the right things to help as many of those folks turn into paying customers as possible. And
all you need when you upload is you don't need your actual file. You just need the title and a book cover.
Just a title and a book cover.
And you need to add, title, book cover. You need to add the data in, set, keywords and sales copy and all that stuff. Basically, if you're going to do a pre-order, you need to put in whatever data you need to build the Amazon's page.
Right. And then the other advantage, like we mentioned previously, if you're kind of sequencing it and trying to make available an audio edition, then having a pre-order up there already allows you to populate it via ACX. So that's really cool. The disadvantages are, well, actually, I'll leave that to you. What are the disadvantages to summarize?
Disadvantage summarize. I'm trying to remember what I said. I remember the last thing that I said is potentially it's harder to know where if you're missing out on sales. Potentially, it could be that the fact that it is a pre-order that could be working against you.
Right.
I think the number one I mentioned was you got to have once you set a date, you're stuck to that date.
Right.
And then the other one, if you end up sending traffic too early, I think we were talking about that, then that could hurt you on your launch day. There may have been another one in there, Rob. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, cool. No problem. All right. So all good. I think that covers kind of the basics of pre-orders, and it's going to depend on your individual situation, what you like. Yeah. Some people may say, hey, I love pre-orders. I do them all the time. I'm part of that target audience. I definitely want to make it available. Other people, like you, might say, hey, I don't really ever do pre-orders and I don't think it's really necessary or really helpful in my situation. Obviously you've done them and you have experience doing them, but other people may not, or they may just not want the hassle of, having something overhead where it's not just, hey, I told my followers that I purchased this book. It's also my Amazon account is tied to it, and it's potentially in jeopardy if something happens unforeseen and I can't get that book available at the tail end. So
and that just made me think of something, Rob, that maybe is a topic for a whole nother video. The fact that I'm all for pre-orders now. That's I mean, if you guys haven't told that, like haven't been able to get that yet, like I'm for them now. But I also have that. I don't do it myself. I wouldn't do it. So I think, when you're thinking about running your business and writing books and getting on Amazon and all that, you have to think of things from others' perspective too. What would other people do? Are people doing pre-orders? Just because you won't do it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. I know maybe that's obvious, but when you're thinking about just because you don't love your book cover, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be the best representation of your book.
Right. So, it bears repeating. So that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes about books, and it says, "Look, if you're an artist and you're trying to create content, and you think, okay, well, if I'm only if I'm just thinking about marketability, that's kind of selling out, and that's an abdication of my artistic integrity or something." And the counterpoint is, absolutely. You can call the people who pay attention to what your audience wants sellouts. They sold out their first print run. Yeah. And and I think that was Tom Corson Knowles. So thanks, Tom, in one of your books for mentioning that. But that stuck with me, and obviously, you try and figure out a good balance of that, where you have integrity, you're speaking truth and your story and something that's meaningful to you. And at the same time, you're being mindful of what your audience wants, finding that overlap so you can really provide great value and also enjoy the process of getting that content and that work out there.
Yeah, like if mermaid fiction sells really well, but you absolutely hate writing mermaid fiction, like I wouldn't want to do that because I wouldn't want to read it. Then you're not in your sweet spot there. That's right. That's an off balance, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe you like werewolf fiction, and that's where your sweet spot is going to be. Yeah. So we'll see. Okay, I think that's all for now. So did you have anything else that you wanted to share for tonight, Jordan?
Nope, that's good. Just cool. Make sure you check out our previous weeks. We talked about, Rob mentioned a little bit, talked about sequencing. That was week 3. It's a question we get a lot here. What's the timing? How do I make all this work? And how do I get, all my files together and make a time frame? What does that look like? We went over all of that last week. So
yep. And then also we talked about audiobooks and using pre-orders for audiobooks, and then getting into all sorts of questions audiobook related. We spoke about that on a previous live video. And as always, if you have topics, if you have ideas, if you have questions or comments that you'd like to share, things that you want us to address in upcoming videos, drop us a line. We'll do our best, and we want to provide helpful, useful content for the audience, and not be sellouts in the bad way, but sellouts in the good way.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See you guys.